If there's a measure like that lying around under a rock somewhere,
well, look,
someone needs to show it to me because
look, stupid.
I haven't seen it.
Is that
well? You keep on looking then. How about that? What a jerk off. Clinton Jaws, you're going to find this weird because I do. Sometimes when I see the looks of people, I don't like to watch them talk. And that is why I have never heard this guy talk before. He's the environment minister in Canada. His name is Stephen, let's just call him Guilbeault. I can't pronounce the last name. He's on Question Period the other day. Do you know Question Period, CTV, with VASSY? Have you ever watched it? She's probably the only one I like. Out of all the journalists, I like her. I like her stern face. It does something to me. She's serious, and I like that. And every now and then she does one of these, like if she hears something, she's like, just like my woman, like, and I like it. I've watched her for many years, and I find her attractive, if I'm allowed to say that. I like what she has done to her face and her body. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
It was okay to comment on people's bodies. And in the modern world, you can't do that. That can come across as sexual harassment.
Anyway, so this twerp, you can't believe, I couldn't believe the stuff that came out of his mouth. I'm going to watch him forever now. This guy, this is the guy, these people run Canada. I want you to hear what he says. You got to really listen to the words that he chooses. Freaky. Let's watch some of it.
Hi, Minister. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Look at that. Look at him right off the bat, right? Can't even crack a smile. A geek in school, still a geek today, thinks he's important. Sorry, I get worked up. She asked him a question. Why is it okay to pause the price for home heating oil, but not for the upcoming tax that's coming on April 1st? This is what this guy says. Remember, they paused it for home heating. Why can't they pause it for April 1st? Put a pause on it. Don't do it.
So the very reason for putting a price on pollution, and it's been done before, and not just for climate change, but for other environmental challenges, is that you want to incentivize change in behavior for companies, industrial organizations, but also individuals. What we found out with home heating oil is that the vast majority, in fact, of people who are still using home heating oil in Canada
are poor.
And there are more people in my home province of Quebec than in all of Atlantic
Canada, yeah.
for example,
don't
that
care
still
where you
use
live.
it, but tend to be lower to middle income Canadians who
people who use home heating oil are poor, like me. I use home heating oil.
Don't have the money to make the switch for less polluting forms.
So these people don't have the money, guys. So that's why they're giving them a deal for it.
Canadians who don't have the money to make the switch for less polluting form of home heating oil, home heating, which is why we decided to put a pause specifically on this, because home heating oil is the most expensive, it's the most inefficient, and it's the most polluting way of heating your homes.
But at this point in time, given the affordability struggles, like you highlight many of those using home heating oil are facing, would it not be worth considering pressing pause in this instance?
No, it wouldn't, because
Why?
we can't put a pause on climate change.
Can't put a pause on climate change, guys. But you could put a pause on home heating. The most disgusting thing to heat your home. Can't put a pause on climate change. Why can't you? Why can't you? Well, people will die in the future. Do you see what I see? You see right through this guy? People can't afford heating oil, so they put a pause on it, but they're going to put a 23% hike on the carbon tax. Because you can't put a pause on climate change. It gets better. I want you guys to know something because I didn't know it. In 2019, they came out with a carbon tax. It started off at $20. In 2020, it went up. In 2021, it went up. 2022, 2023. It's at $65 right now. And on April 1st, it's going something like 80. 23% hike. Listen to this question.
Right now, the plan that your government laid out post-2019, the 2019 election, got us to 2030, and the targets that you set out to 2030, and that is when the price on carbon will reach $170.
It's going up to 170 in 2030, okay?
a ton.
Listen.
Do you intend for that price to continue to go up, since you do see this as such an integral part of your climate policy beyond 2030 to help Canada reach its 2050 target?
So we haven't made a decision on that.
Isn't that unbelievable? They haven't made a decision on that. They're guessing, guys. They're just guessing. They don't even know what they're doing. They got no plan. They got no real idea. They're just throwing something at something. This guy.
We've started consultation to prepare the next phase of emission reduction, so post-2030 in Canada, in fact, going to 2035. Those consultations are ongoing.
I want you guys to listen to what this fool says here. Listen to it closely.
As you pointed out, Vassy, I've been doing this for some time. I've been looking at climate change measures, policies, programs for better part of my adult life,
apparently
the last 30 years. And if there's a measure somewhere that someone can point to me that will help us to achieve at least 10%, if we're talking about the fuel charge, of our 2030 targets, at no extra cost.
It's not our job.
It's revenue neutral. Whatever we collect, we send back. If there's a measure like that lying around under a rock somewhere,
well, look,
someone needs to show it to me because
look, stupid.
I haven't seen it.
Is that
well? You keep on looking then. How about that? What a jerk off. I want you to listen to what he's about to say. Don't leave. You got to hear this.
Isn't necessary. Many of your progressive allies, like Premier Wab Kinew, like the leader of the Alberta NDP, Rachel Notley, like Liberal Bonnie Crombie, like Liberal Andrew Furey, all of them are saying the same thing as Pierre Poilievre in this instance.
They're saying axe to tax. They're all saying the same thing. Listen to what he says here.
Fighting climate change is hard.
It's so hard.
And the easy thing to do would be to cave in.
It might be impossible, actually. Sometimes climates change.
And say, okay, we won't do that. But if we don't continue putting in place measures to fight climate change, then it means more Canadians being impacted by heat waves. But
by heat waves.
How many?
Do you notice how he just mentioned heat wave? Look at this guy. He's wearing a parka on a beautiful sunny day. It's not even cold out. You can't even see his breath. I can't even, doesn't even make any sense to me. Is it cold? If it's cold, why is he talking about heat waves? It's cold out. Just a lunatic. And he's going to talk to you about heat waves now. You got to listen to this.
And it means more Canadians being impacted by heat waves. But I mean, how many tens of thousands of Canadians had to be evacuated across the country last year? Sometimes once, twice, 3 times because of the forest fires. Nova Scotia, worst forest fires in the history of the country. Worst droughts in the history of the country. Worst tropical storm in the history of the country.
Worst tropical storm. Worst fires. Worst tropical storms. So what he's doing ain't working. They've been working on this since 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. Taxing us, taxing you. And it hasn't done a thing. Why hasn't it done a thing? Because we just had the worst year on record. How can you have done all that work and not seen one result? Because he's Mr. Measurable. They're not measuring nothing, guys. It's a guessing game. They're guessing. And they're scaring you guys when they talk about your children's future. They're guessing. This guy don't have a clue. This is what worries me about Canada. People like this running it. What has he ever solved in his entire life? Hey, dipstick, you're ripping me off. Whatever you're doing, it ain't working.